Hey everybody, it's been a while, but I thought it might be interesting to dig back in and make a couple more videos. And what I thought I'd do to start with is actually talk about, I think, one of the greatest challenges of reading, which is reading for yourself. I am an overthinker, and because of that, I find it really hard to read for myself and make any sense of what I'm reading. There are so many options, there are so many potentialities. That feels really enriching and really exciting when I'm reading for someone else because I don't know. For some reason, being on the outside makes it easier to look in, I guess. But when I'm on the inside, I find it really hard and I become overwhelmed by all the options. I go down really negative roads. I get frustrated and I throw in the towel. What I have started doing in recent years is the opposite. I've tried to stop thinking completely. And I've started taking a cue from Lenormand, which is obviously a divination technique, but very different. And the thing that happens there is you simplify it a lot. It's a lot more blunt, as people say. It's a lot more about this means this plus this. It's a little bit more like math, which normally turns me off. But I think in the case of being an overthinker, having simple concepts can go a long way. So for example, and I'm not, I should say, a reader of Lenormand. I've started reading about it. There's some great videos from Donna Lay on Tarot Tribes Beyond World on YouTube. There's good stuff out there, but I'm not. So this is, this isn't professional grade Lenormand here. But if you're unfamiliar, essentially what you do is you sort of pull a number of cards, and you would never really do a one-card Lenormand reading. You'd do at least two, up to, in some cases, evidently the whole deck. So let me get this stuff out of the way here. So you would pull your cards, and you would do it sort of quickly and say, I've got the ring, the clouds, and the stars. And so I would say something very quickly like, there's a relationship or a contract that's causing you confusion, and that confusion is spreading. It's getting deeper. It's spreading out. And you could keep adding cards, etc. You could say it's spreading because there's some deception involved. And that deception involves something that seems like a really sexy gift, but in fact might not be. And, you can go on and on. The confusion involves a man, and the contract involves a community. So you've got a contract involving a community, but some man in there is creating confusion for you. It's spreading, and that's because it involves some sneakiness, some snakiness, and it seems like a gift, but it's not. And again, that's really rough. I'm not not all that well versed. But what you get out of that is really, really quick, because one of the things with that method, as far as I've learned, is that you go fast, and there are basic definitions that you assign to the cards, and you don't overthink it. So in a way, we're going to sort of read for us right now that way, for ourselves. What that means in terms of preparation is that you really need to go through your deck with the tarot and decide on a concept for each one. You need to decide, for example, it doesn't matter what the descriptions are, but you need to decide that the Page of Cups represents someone learning to feel. For example, I associate Page with students and Cups are emotions. That's just off the top of my head. The Ace of Pentacles. Pentacles are about grounded daily life. This is a new beginning in my everyday life. Maybe it's related to work. And you sort of go on like that. The Tower is about dramatic change. So what you need is really quick definitions that are that simple. It's actually what a lot of people do when they're learning to read anyway, so you probably already have that skill. But it's important that you have a really, really powerful, quick concept for each card, especially the ones that are likely to send you downward spiraling, like death. Because when you're reading for yourself, if you're an anxious person like I am, you're going to see that card, and the first thing that's going to cross your mind, even if you're the kind of reader who would never do this to a client, say, oh my God, I'm going to die. I've never read for anybody and interpreted that card that way, ever. But when I see it myself, I panic. What I interpret it as when I read for others is pummeling headlong into the unknown, right? That's essentially what it is. It makes me think of Hamlet. just sort of going right ahead. I've also seen it as the moment something changes, sort of the space between something ending and something else beginning. But I need to have that in my head so that when that card comes up, I don't freak. What I get instead is the thought, okay, I'm hurtling into the unknown. What do I do next? So that's the first thing. You really want to have a strong concept for all 78 of these. That's going to go a long way. The next thing that's important is that you don't overthink, as I keep saying. You go right to your sort of concept and just let that be that. And move quickly. And then you can think about it later. But what you're doing is almost like playing, a word game, where you're pulling Scrabble tiles and you're using them to spell something out. Another thing that I find helpful is actually I don't necessarily use traditional spreads, and I won't kind of do the normal shuffle and cut the deck and lay them out. What I find more useful for some reason when I'm reading for myself is to do the sort of thing of spreading them out this way and think, as I shuffle, I think about my question, and then I think about what the parts of the question are going to be. That's the next part. Your question is important. If you know this from working with other people, you know that if you ask a vague question, you're going to get a vague answer. You know that if you ask a question you don't want to know the answer to, you're going to get upset. You know that if you read about something that you shouldn't read about, for example, whether or not you're going to be diagnosed with something incurable, it's going to downward spiral. So asking a strong question is really useful, and breaking them up really specifically. So if I were, for example, to say, do a daily draw, I might craft that question as, what's something that I really need to be focused on today? I shuffle and I think, what do I need to focus on today? I draw my card and I get the wheel. So I say, what's going to be really important to me today is cycles. Today's going to be all about cycles. Now, if I want to go further, I can say, what kind of cycles? What kind of cycles are going to infect me today? I get what does that say? This is the Eight of Swords reverse. So this is going to be a cycle of getting trapped and released. So if I'm at work, this might be about getting stuck on conference calls and then having them end suddenly, having a few minutes, and then suddenly getting bombarded again. So you literally do it that fast. What's going to be important for me today? The Ace of Rods. It's going to be really important for me to start some creative work, start some work on my vocation. What's my first step? The Tower. Gotta rethink everything, dramatically rethink the way I've been thinking about what I'm doing. So you just move that quickly, and without overthinking it, you're sort of freed up. You're not bound by the avalanche of information that you can get out of the cards. And I frequently will pull additional cards for myself using this method, which I don't usually do when I'm reading for other people. In fact, I learned early on that's a big no-no, and the good readers read with the cards that show up. If you're doing a 3-card reading, you use 3 cards, and that's that. When I'm doing this for myself, if I want more information, I just pull it. So if I say something like, what's really important in my job search, let's say I'm looking for a new job, I get the 9 of Cups reversed. I would say that this is about not being gluttonous. I really should focus my energy and my emotional attention on a few small things rather than overdoing it. Okay, so I'm going to not overdo it. I should limit my intake. What do I do to start? What do I have here? I have the 3 of Rods reversed. What I should do is, before sending my energy out into the world, I should really do some research on what my interests and my vocation are, right? Because we've got Rods, which is about creativity, energy, vocation, and the 3 of Rods is usually about sending your ships out, right? If you think of the Rider-Waite, this is reverse, so I'm going to do the opposite of that. I'm not going to overindulge. I'm not going to extend myself. I'm not going to take in too much. What I am going to do before I get started is really think and consider and think about my vocation. What would be a good resource for me to look at? So I pull another card, and I get the strength. So in this case, I would think what my resource is to look for inspiration in, and this is a hard one, look for inspiration in people I know who are really good at this, right? Who have that strength. Who do I know that is, once I've gotten this, once I've sort of really narrowed down my choices and started to think about what my vocation should be before I do anything, then I'm going to seek out people who are good at that, who have that strength, and maybe think about my strengths as well. And on and on. So this is a lot easier for me. Because I'm moving so quickly, it's a lot harder to overthink it. And because I have generally really strong keywords that I've developed and concepts over the years, it makes it easier to do. So that's how I've been doing that for myself. And the same goes if I'm using something other than tarot. I've started getting into oracle decks that are a little bit different. And that's really interesting too. And I'm going to slide these away. By the way, this deck, if you don't know it, is the Ellis Tarot. It's a self-published handmade deck. Love it. And it's still in print. It's in its 3rd edition. If you Google the Ellis Tarot, you'll find it. You'll find it on the Eclectic Forum. Really well printed. The backs are different now, but really cool. And I think he's got a new edition made out of that sort of plastic. There's the paper version like this, but then there's one that's plastic that shuffles like playing cards, which I think is really cool. But similarly with Oracle's decks, and this is the Oracle of Visions by Ciro Marchetti, which doesn't have any keywords associated with it. And in fact, part of his deal was to sort of create something that people could use without the system of tarot. There's a guidebook in it, but the theory behind it is that you just go. Again, I think the question matters, and just jumping into it really matters. So if I am reading for myself and I'm wondering about what should I do next, in my relationship, I pull a card and I get this woman here weaving together strands, rainbow strands. So I say, what I need to start doing is bringing all the different elements of my relationship together and weave them into a single tapestry. So that's my meaning. Now I can journal about it and decide what that actually means practically, but I decided really fast, and then I just go, and I try not to overthink it. Again, let's say I was thinking about my job, what's the first thing I need to think about as I'm trying to get this promotion? So I get this guy here. Well, in fact, they're women, so sorry, sexism. So the first thing I should do is think about how I'm going to balance all the parts of my job and how I'm going to rest while I'm working through attempting to get this promotion. So balance, rest, balance, rest. And then, again, I can go off and journal about what that means to me. I can look at little elements in the picture and say, this hula hoop suggests that I may have to do a little dancing for the people. But, it may make me feel a little demotivated. It may make me feel a little silly. But you know what? Everything's a circus, and sometimes you got to play your part. That's fine. I can do all of that later. But it's balance and rest. Where should I go on vacation? I should go on vacation somewhere that features faith. It should be a retreat of some kind. I should find an opportunity to refill my spiritual cup. Boom. That fast. And again, I think the faster that you do it, the easier it is. And then you can journal about it. Then you can dig into it. But dig into that one meaning rather than overthinking everything. So those are my thoughts there. It's been really working well for me. I hope it works well for you.